I'll start by saying this. I was never the kind of guy who loses it. I've seen my dad punch a hole through drywall once when I was a kid, and I swore I'd never be that man. Never raise my voice, never throw things, never let anger own me. But anger isn't always loud. Sometimes it just simmers under the skin, quiet, invisible, waiting. For me, it started with something stupid, a coffee cup. I came home from work one night, dropped my bag, and noticed my favorite mug sitting in the sink, chipped. Just a small crack on the rim, but it set something off in me. That mug was part of a set my wife and I got when we first moved in together. I turned it over, saw lipstick on the edge, and something about that color. It wasn't hers. That sounds dramatic, I know. But she doesn't wear lipstick. Never has. Not once in the 6 years we've been married. She always said it felt fake. So yeah, I just stood there in the kitchen staring at a broken mug and a smear of coral pink lipstick like it was evidence in a murder case. I didn't yell. I didn't throw it. I just froze. That's when I realized how quiet the house was. No music, no TV, no dog barking. I checked the time, 9:17 p.m. She was supposed to be home by 8. I tried calling her. Straight to voicemail. Texted. No reply. And that's when I felt the first wave of anger. Not fire, not shouting, just that cold, shaking kind that sits in your chest like a ticking bomb. I remember thinking, don't be like your dad. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. So I made a decision. I wasn't going to sit there imagining things. I was going to find out. That's where I'll leave this part. Because what I found out next didn't just test my temper. It tested every ounce of control I thought I had. So, I grabbed my keys and told myself I was just going to drive around, clear my head. Not spy, not stalk, just breathe. But let's be honest. When your gut is screaming, something's wrong, you don't drive to calm down. You drive to find. I headed toward her gym first, the one she always said she went to after work. The lights were still on when I pulled into the parking lot, but her car wasn't there. I sat for a moment, hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. And that's when my phone buzzed. A text from her. Sorry, stayed late at work. Going to grab food with the team. Don't wait up, Red Heart. My first thought wasn't anger, it was confusion. Because her office? It was 10 minutes in the opposite direction. So I drove there. Now, I'm not proud of what I did next, but I parked across the street from her building and just waited. For 15 minutes. Then 30. Then almost an hour. No sign of her. Just as I was about to leave, I saw a group of people walk out. And there she was, except she wasn't with her coworkers. She was with one guy, and they weren't walking side by side. He had his hand on her lower back, the kind of touch that said, this isn't just friendly. That was the moment I felt the anger pulse. It wasn't even jealousy at first, it was the lying. The hours I spent trusting her while she looked me in the eye and smiled. They went to her car, stood there talking, and I swear she laughed. That quiet laugh she used to do with me when she was nervous. I wanted to get out. I really did. I even opened the door, but I stopped myself. My dad's voice flashed in my head again. That one night, he came home drunk and yelling, breaking everything in sight. So I sat there instead, gripping the wheel, whispering to myself, don't be him. Don't be that man. I watched her drive away, not toward home, but toward the highway. And that was it. I followed. My heart was pounding, my chest tight, but I wasn't shouting or crying. Just focused. Cold. Controlled. At least, that's what I told myself. I didn't even feel like I was driving. It was more like I was on autopilot. Her taillights glowed in the distance, and I just kept them in view. 10 minutes turned into 20. Then 30. We were way out of the city now. That's when I saw it. She turned into a side road lined with trees, the kind that leads to those old roadside motels. I slowed down and pulled over before the turn, headlights off. My pulse was hammering so hard I could hear it in my ears. She pulled into the parking lot of a rundown place with a flickering neon sign, Lakeview Motel. I remember that sign vividly. Half the letters were dead, so it just read, AQ Moat. For some reason, that stupid missing L burned itself into my brain. I watched her park. A minute later, the guy's car pulled up next to hers. He got out first. Tall, clean cut, wearing the same company badge lanyard as hers. So yeah, someone from work. I remember gripping the steering wheel again, trying to breathe through my nose, telling myself, Maybe it's not what it looks like. Maybe it's a business emergency. Maybe they're meeting someone, maybe. Then he leaned in, kissed her, and they walked inside together. My vision blurred for a second. It felt like my entire body forgot what to do. Not just anger, betrayal, disbelief, humiliation, all of it crashing together. The next few minutes are a blur. I stepped out of the car and started walking toward the motel like I was in a trance. I wasn't planning to yell or hit or make a scene. I just wanted her to see me, to see what she was doing to me. But halfway there, I stopped. Because suddenly, it hit me. If I walked in there, I'd become a story. Angry husband storms motel. I could see the headline, the cops, the mugshot, my dad's face when he punched that wall. So instead, I turned around, walked back to my car, sat there in the dark for a long, long time. I didn't cry, didn't scream, just stared at that half-dead motel sign until it flickered out completely. That night, I realized something. Controlling anger isn't about pretending you're calm. It's about deciding what kind of man you're going to be when you have every reason not to be. Still, I wasn't done. Not even close. Because the next morning, she walked in the door like nothing happened. And that's when I decided I was going to confront her, but on my terms. She came home around 7:30 a.m., same gym bag slung over her shoulder, same, "I'm tired," look, like she'd just had a long workout. I was sitting at the kitchen table, coffee already brewed, waiting. I hadn't slept, didn't even change clothes. My hands were wrapped around the mug just to stop them from shaking. She froze for a second when she saw me there. Then she smiled. "Hey, you're up early." I stared at her, didn't say a word, just waited. She started filling her water bottle, avoiding eye contact. "You okay?" That's when I said it, calmly, too calmly. "How was Lakeview Motel?" She froze mid-pour. The bottle overflowed, water spilling onto the counter. I watched her throat move as she swallowed, trying to find words. "What?" she said, barely a whisper. "You heard me," I said. "Lakeview Motel. You were there last night. With someone from work." Her hands trembled. Then, suddenly, she tried to smile. That same fake, nervous smile she uses when she's cornered. "It's not what you think." I almost laughed. That line should be trademarked. She went on, said they were working on a proposal, that the office Wi-Fi went down, and that they just needed a quiet place to finish. A motel. At 10 p.m. I didn't even argue. I just asked one question. Did the proposal need kissing too? That shut her down. No more excuses. She sat at the table across from me, staring at the wood grain like it could save her. Then came the tears. And I'll admit, that almost broke me. Not because I believed her, but because seeing her cry still triggered something protective in me, like muscle memory. She said she made a mistake, that it just happened, that it was only once. I remember looking at her, and for the first time, I didn't feel that burning anger. I felt tired, empty. I said, "You didn't make a mistake. You made a choice. More than once, probably." And then I got up, walked out of the house. I didn't slam the door, didn't throw anything, didn't raise my voice. I just walked to my car and sat there for 15 minutes, hands on the steering wheel, letting silence do what yelling never could. That's when the next wave hit. Not rage this time, but clarity. If I stayed, I'd never trust her again. And if I left in anger, I'd regret the way I did it. So I made a promise to myself right there. I'd leave, but I'd do it with my dignity intact. I didn't go far that morning. Just drove around aimlessly until I ended up at a park I used to visit before we got married. Sat there in the parking lot, watching people jog, walk their dogs, live normal lives. I kept thinking, how do you walk away from someone you built a life with, without destroying yourself in the process? By noon, I made up my mind. I was going to leave. No yelling, no theatrics, no revenge. Just leave. When I got back to the house, she was sitting on the couch with her phone in her hands and her eyes swollen from crying. The TV was on but muted, one of those daytime talk shows about forgiveness and moving forward. The irony wasn't lost on me. I didn't say anything, just went to the bedroom, grabbed a duffel bag, and started packing clothes. She followed me in quietly. "You're really leaving?" she asked. I didn't even look up. "Yeah, I can't do this." She started talking fast, apologizing, begging, saying it meant nothing, that she'd end things with him. that we could go to counseling. Her voice cracked halfway through a sentence, and she dropped to her knees beside the bed. I'll never forget what she said next. You're the calm one, remember? You always said you'd never walk out without a fight. That one hit deep. Because she was right. I was the calm one. The one who fixed things, talked things out, kept the peace. But that day, I realized keeping the peace sometimes just means swallowing your pain so the other person doesn't have to face it. I zipped up the bag and stood there. That's the problem, I said. I fought for us alone. Then something unexpected happened. She slapped me. Not hard, but enough to shock me. Enough to make every muscle in my body tense. She immediately broke down again, saying she didn't mean it, that she just couldn't stand watching me leave. And right there, that was the moment I almost lost it. My dad's shadow crept back in. I felt that flash of heat in my chest, that primal urge to shout, to throw something, to do something. But I didn't. I just closed my eyes, took a long breath, and walked out. The door clicked shut behind me. No slam, no noise, just the quiet sound of an ending. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't angry anymore. Just free. I thought leaving would give me peace. Turns out, leaving was the easy part. It's what comes after that tests you. The first few days, she called nonstop. Then came the texts. Dozens at first, then paragraphs, then voice notes filled with crying and apologies. I didn't answer any of them. I figured silence would say more than words ever could. I was staying at a cheap short-term rental. Nothing fancy, just a place to breathe. But anger has this weird way of following you, like static in your chest that you can't turn off. 3 days after I left, I went to grab groceries. I was walking out of the store, carrying a paper bag, when I saw him. The guy from the motel, standing by his car, on the phone, smiling. I froze. It took me a second to place him. Same company badge, same smug face. And suddenly, that calm I'd been clinging to cracked just a little. I walked straight toward him before my brain could stop me. He noticed me halfway there, and his face drained of color. Hey, he started, but I cut him off. You know who I am? I asked. He nodded, stammering. Listen, man, I didn't know she was married. I almost laughed. That weak, sarcastic kind of laugh that comes out when you've heard too much garbage in 1 week. You didn't know? I said. You've been to our house. You've seen the pictures on the wall. His eyes darted away. That was enough confirmation. And right then, that wave came back. My heartbeat went wild, my hands clenched, and I swear I felt every muscle in my body screaming to do something. Punch him, shove him, make him feel what I feel. But instead, I dropped the bag of groceries on the ground and took one step back. You can keep lying to yourself, I said quietly, but I'm done living like that. Then I turned around and walked away. My hands were shaking, my chest was tight, but I didn't give him the satisfaction of seeing me explode. He called after me, something about being sorry, but I didn't even turn around. When I got back to my car, I sat there for a few minutes, staring at my reflection in the rearview mirror. I didn't look angry. I looked hollow, exhausted. That's when I realized something big. Anger doesn't just come from betrayal. It comes from wanting control over what's already gone. And that's when I finally stopped checking my phone. Stopped wondering if she was sorry. Stopped trying to make sense of it. Because sometimes, peace isn't found by forgiving someone else. It's by refusing to let them drag you back into the fire you finally walked out of. A week after the grocery store incident, I finally admitted to myself that I wasn't okay. I wasn't smashing things or yelling, but the anger was still there, quiet, heavy, like a bruise under the skin. So, I booked a session with a therapist. First time in my life. She was this older woman named Dr. Klein. Calm voice, the kind that made silence feel less awkward. I told her everything. The lipstick, the motel, the slap, the guy in the parking lot. When I finished, she didn't say much at first. Just looked at me and asked, when you feel that anger rise, what do you want to do? I told her the truth. I want to yell. I want to make her feel what I felt. She nodded and said something that stuck with me. Anger wants action. But sometimes the most powerful action is inaction. That line hit harder than I expected. Because yeah, walking away felt weak at first. But now I started to see it wasn't weakness. It was restraint. It was me choosing not to become the person who hurt me. I left that session lighter. Not happy, but a little steadier. Then that night, as if the universe couldn't let me have one day of peace, she texted me. Please, can we talk? I'm pregnant. My stomach dropped. My heart started hammering so fast I thought I might pass out. I stared at that text for 5 full minutes before typing. Is it mine? No reply. Just those 3 gray dots for a long time. Then they disappeared. And just like that, the calm I'd built all week started to crumble. My mind went wild. Timelines, possibilities, lies on top of lies. I almost called her, but something stopped me. Dr. Klein's voice in my head. Anger wants action. So, instead of calling, I turned off my phone. Made tea. Sat in the dark. Breathed until my pulse slowed down. Because maybe controlling anger isn't about never feeling it. Maybe it's about not letting it decide what you'll regret tomorrow. Still, that message changed everything. Because if what she said was true, this story wasn't over yet. I didn't sleep that night. I just lay there staring at the ceiling, every scenario running through my head. If she was pregnant, and if it wasn't mine, I didn't know what I'd do. By morning, I couldn't take it anymore. I texted her. We need to talk. In person. She agreed right away. We met at a cafe near her office, Neutral Ground. When she walked in, she looked rough. Hair unbrushed, eyes swollen, like she hadn't slept either. She sat down without saying anything. I didn't waste time. Is it mine? I asked. She hesitated for a long time, then whispered, I don't know. That hit me harder than I expected. Not just the words, the honesty in them. I felt the anger boiling under my skin again. My jaw clenched. My legs started bouncing. Dr. Klein's voice popped up in my head again. You can't control what people do, but you can control what you become because of it. So I took a slow breath, looked her dead in the eyes, and said, Then I want to test. If it's mine, I'll take responsibility. If it's not, this conversation never happens again. She nodded, tears rolling down her cheeks. Then she said something that made my stomach twist. He already knows. I blinked. The guy from the motel? Yes, she whispered. He told me he'd support me either way. That one line, that casual betrayal, was the spark that could have set everything on fire. Every cell in my body screamed to stand up, shout, do something. But I didn't. I just sat there gripping the coffee cup until my fingers hurt. After a few seconds of silence, I said, Then you don't need me anymore. And I walked out. She didn't chase me this time. Didn't cry or beg. Just sat there, staring at the table, like even she knew it was over. When I got outside, I stood on the sidewalk and let the cold air hit my face. My heart was racing, but I didn't feel broken, just strangely calm. I realized then that anger isn't just about destruction. It's a message, a signal that something inside you needs protection. And for the first time in a long time, I decided that the thing I was protecting was myself. 2 weeks later, I got a call from her. No drama in her voice this time, no begging, just quiet. The results came in, she said. I'll leave them in your mailbox. I don't think I can face you. I didn't say much. Just okay. When I got home that evening, there it was, a plain white envelope in my mailbox, no return address, my name scrawled in her handwriting. I took it inside and just stared at it for a while. My hands were trembling a bit, like my body already knew something my mind wasn't ready for. Finally, I tore it open. I scanned the page, found the section labeled Probability of Paternity. 0%. It wasn't mine. For a moment, I didn't feel anything at all. Just numb. Then, slowly, the wave hit. Not the fiery anger I expected, but something colder, deeper. Relief, sadness, disgust, freedom, all tangled up into something indescribable. I sat on the couch for what felt like hours, reading and rereading that one line. 0%. Then my phone buzzed, another text from her. I'm so sorry. He's leaving me. I didn't know what to do. And that's when it clicked. She wasn't reaching out because of guilt. She was reaching out because she had nowhere else to go. That's when I realized how much of my anger wasn't even about her cheating. It was about how I kept trying to save someone who wouldn't even save herself. I didn't reply. I deleted her message and blocked her number. No big speech, no closure text. No, maybe someday. Just silence. That night, I went for a long walk. Cold air, quiet streets, my breath fogging in front of me. And I realized, I wasn't angry anymore. Not at her, not at him, not even at myself. I was just done. Anger feeds on unfinished business, and for the first time, I didn't have any left. Still, life has this way of throwing curveballs right when you think the story's over, and 1 week later, I got one more surprise. A week after the test results, I started feeling normal again, or as close to normal as you can after your marriage implodes. I was sleeping, eating better, even went back to the gym. Then one morning, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Is this Mr. Nolan?" "Yeah," I said cautiously. "This is Detective Perez with the county police. I was wondering if you could come down to the station to answer a few questions." My stomach sank. "What's this about?" "It's regarding a domestic disturbance report involving your ex-wife." My heart started racing again. That familiar thud-thud in my chest, I thought I'd escaped. At the station, the detective sat me down and explained. Apparently, a few nights earlier, she'd shown up at his apartment. The guy from the motel, drunk, angry, and out of control. Neighbors called the cops when they heard shouting and glass breaking. When they got there, she told them he ruined her life and lied about everything. And here's where it got strange. The detective said my name came up multiple times in her statement, that she'd accused me of harassing her and showing up uninvited. My jaw dropped. I hadn't even seen her since the cafe. I told him everything, calmly, truthfully, even offered to show the messages I'd deleted, thankfully still backed up on my phone. After a while, he leaned back, rubbed his forehead, and said, "You don't seem like the angry type she described." That one stung a little, not because it wasn't true, but because it used to be. I'd been angry. I just hadn't acted on it. They cleared me pretty quickly, said it was likely a mix of alcohol and her trying to shift blame. Still, walking out of that station, I felt something strange. Not anger, not pity, just gratitude. Grateful that I'd walked away when I did. Grateful that I hadn't gone to that motel, hadn't shouted, hadn't done anything that could have given her story any weight. Because if I had lost control that night, I'd be sitting in a cell, not in my car watching the sunrise. That's when it hit me. Sometimes controlling your anger doesn't just save your dignity. It saves your freedom. And as I watched the sky turn gold, I realized that was my real turning point. Still, the story wasn't quite over. Because a few weeks later, something arrived in the mail, something that would finally give me the closure I didn't know I needed. A few weeks after the detective visit, I got a plain envelope in my mailbox. No return address. Just my name, scrawled in her handwriting. At first, I thought, great. Another apology. Another attempt to pull me back in. I almost threw it in the trash, but something made me open it. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Her handwriting was messy, hurried. I was selfish. I lied. I hurt you in ways I can't even begin to explain. You never lost your temper, never tried to hurt me, even when I gave you every reason to. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just wanted you to know I see now the man I threw away. And I hope one day you find someone who deserves you. Someone who will never make you question yourself like I did. I sat there on the couch, just staring at the words. My hands were shaking slightly, not from anger this time, but from the sheer weight of it. For a moment, I felt something I hadn't in months, a flicker of the man I used to be before all this chaos. Calm, grounded, in control. I realized that controlling your anger doesn't mean never feeling it. It means choosing how to let it shape you. Choosing not to let it destroy you or define your decisions. I didn't cry. I didn't throw the letter away. I folded it carefully and put it in a drawer. A reminder, I thought, that I'd survived something that could have ruined me and came out stronger. That day, I finally felt a kind of closure I didn't know I could have without confrontation, without yelling, without revenge. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't easy, but it was mine. And I knew then that my anger had taught me something invaluable. Patience, restraint, and self-respect are more powerful than any shouting match or heated confrontation. After the letter, I finally felt like I could breathe again. I started small, going for runs in the mornings, cooking meals I actually liked, reconnecting with old friends I'd neglected. The anger that had sat in my chest for months was fading, replaced by quiet focus. One evening, I was at a small coffee shop downtown, sipping black coffee and scrolling through my phone. A man in his 60s sat at the next table, sketching in a notebook. He glanced up and said, "You look like you've been carrying something heavy." I laughed awkwardly. "You could say that." He nodded knowingly. Anger's a funny thing. It whispers, shouts, sometimes screams, but most of the time it just sits quietly, waiting for you to hand over your piece. You don't have to listen to it. I stared at him. Something about his calm demeanor, the way he said it like it was obvious, struck me. "So what do you do with it?" I asked. He smiled. "You let it teach you. Let it warn you. Then you let it go. Otherwise, it controls you, and you're no longer living your life. You're living someone else's story." It was a simple lesson, but it hit harder than anything my therapist said. I left the coffee shop that night feeling lighter, like I was reclaiming the parts of myself I'd almost lost to rage and betrayal. I realized that controlling anger isn't just about big moments like confrontations or threats. It's about everyday choices, deciding when to react and when to pause, choosing calm over chaos. Little did I know, life still had one more unexpected lesson for me, one that would test everything I'd learned about restraint and self-respect. A few weeks later, I was at a local park, trying to enjoy a rare quiet Sunday. I was tossing a frisbee for my dog, letting the sun warm my shoulders, when I heard a familiar voice. "Nolan? Is that you?" I turned, and there she was, not my ex, thank God, but my old college roommate, Sam. We hadn't seen each other in nearly a decade. We sat on a bench, caught up, laughed about old times, and I felt something I hadn't in months. Genuine, effortless joy. Then, out of nowhere, she asked, "So, how have you been?" I mean, really? I hesitated. Not because I didn't want to answer, but because answering meant acknowledging the storm I'd just come through. I found myself telling her everything. The betrayal, the motel, the texts, the anger, even the paternity scare. As I spoke, I realized I wasn't reliving it. I wasn't shaking or flushed. I was telling the story like an observer. When I finished, she looked at me, eyes wide. "And you didn't lose it?" she asked. I smiled a little wry. I did, but only inside my head. Outside, I decided I'd rather walk away than be someone I'd regret being. She nodded slowly, impressed. Most people can't do that. Most people let anger make their decisions for them. Her words hit me in a strange way. I hadn't thought of it like that my restraint, my control, was actually strength, not weakness. That day, I realized something important. Anger doesn't just test your relationships. It tests who you are at your core. And if you let it, it can either break you or make you unrecognizable. I left the park that afternoon feeling lighter than I had in years, like a part of me that had been buried under betrayal and rage was finally breathing again. But the real challenge wasn't over yet. Because controlling anger isn't just about surviving the storm, it's about living after it. After that park encounter, I decided it was time to fully reclaim my life. Not in some dramatic, new man kind of way, but in quiet, deliberate steps. I started by unfollowing her on every social platform, blocking her number, and deleting any photos that reminded me of what used to be. It wasn't about erasing memories. It was about not letting them control me. Then I started saying no more often. No to late-night calls from friends who only wanted to vent. No to work obligations that weren't urgent. No to anything that pulled me away from my mental space. Setting boundaries felt strange at first, almost selfish, but it was liberating. One night, I got a message from an old friend I hadn't spoken to in years. He asked to meet up, and I hesitated. Normally, I would have agreed out of guilt or obligation. But this time, I thought about my peace, my energy, my new routine. And I said, "Not tonight. Let's plan for next week." It was a small decision, but it felt monumental. For the first time, I realized that controlling anger isn't just about dealing with the people who wrong you. It's about managing every part of your life that could trigger it. And then, the unexpected happened. I ran into the guy from the motel. Yes, him. At a coffee shop. He tried to apologize, make small talk. But I didn't feel anger this time. I felt nothing. No desire to yell, no rush to react. I smiled politely, wished him well, and walked out. Walking away that day, I understood something fundamental. Anger is only dangerous if you let it steer your decisions. And choosing not to let it was the hardest, and most empowering thing I'd ever done. It's been months since the motel, the texts, the paternity scare, and the confrontation with him. Life isn't perfect. Nothing ever is. But I found a kind of peace I didn't think was possible back then. Looking back, controlling my anger wasn't about bottling it up. It wasn't about pretending I was calm. It was about choosing how I would act when every instinct told me to explode. Walking away, pausing, breathing, seeking help, and setting boundaries. Those were the tools that kept me from becoming someone I wouldn't recognize. I learned that anger is a signal, not a weapon. It tells you something is wrong, that your values are being violated, that your boundaries are being crossed. But acting on it impulsively only hands power over you to the situation or the person who provoked it. Real control comes from using that energy deliberately to protect yourself, reclaim your life, and grow stronger. If I had shouted, chased, or lashed out at any point, I would have lost more than just a marriage. I might have lost my dignity, my safety, and even the trust one have in myself. Walking away with restraint taught me that I could survive heartbreak and remain proud of who I am. So, to anyone reading this who's struggling with betrayal, lies, or anger, feel your feelings. Don't pretend they're not there. But don't let them decide your actions. Breathe. Step back. Seek support if you need it. And above all, protect yourself first. Because in the end, controlling anger isn't about being weak or cold. It's about being strong enough to choose your own path, even when your heart is breaking and the world feels like it's against you. And that's the story of how I learned the hardest lesson about anger, betrayal, and self-respect, the lesson that still shapes how I live today.